Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Questionable Album Club. This is the podcast where a group of us, music fans, we reevaluate ugly ducklings from rock history and hopefully place them on our leaderboard. Well, they do go on our leaderboard, but we're hoping that they will high on our leaderboard. Our notorious leaderboard that currently top of our leaderboard is Yes Please by the Happy Mondays. The 66 out of 100, because we rate albums out of 100 because that's how much we respect the albums. Speaking of ugly ducklings, on our panel today we've got Andrew Steen. Steenie, hello, Steen.
Quack, hello.
Hello. Nice cap on, Marcus. Hello, Marcus.
Hi, I'm East One.
We've got Steve Gibson. I'm liking the duck theme is continuing through this introductory period. I'm enjoying it. Hello, Steve.
I'm not going to join in. So.
And Steve Hackett.
Hi there.
Hello, Steve. And Steve, it was you we thank today because today's album was nominated by you. A Doors album. We've never done the Doors before. The Soft Parade, the Doors' fourth studio album from 1969, and which is like 56 years ago, man. 56 years ago. It's crazy. And now I remember when you nominated this last week, you were slightly confused because I think you thought you were nominating a different Doors album.
I'm even more confused now. Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll go into that, I suppose. But actually, funnily enough, I think, having read up about it, which I'm sure we've all have done, this actually is possibly the most contentious Doors album because of the orchestration on it, the horns and the strings and the brass and everything, and it seems to be the most unloved by fans. So I think you've kind of lucked into this because otherwise this might not really be allowed because it's just a Doors album, and people like the Doors. They're kind of canonical.
Can
you just explain yourself very briefly? I know it was a mistake, but what was your thinking behind it?
In my head, I thought it was the last album, but I think, like Ross pointed out, he said it was like the second from last, but my God, it isn't. It's the third from last. It was sandwiched in between them all, which in my mind makes it even more of an anomaly. You know what I mean? It's an odd one. I mean, my relationship with the Doors goes back quite a while now. I don't know, if you were the same. They appeal very much to 15-year-old boys, didn't they? I think. And when I was that age, we used to, I was a massive Stranglers fan. I absolutely loved the Stranglers. I used to follow them around and used to read interviews where the interviewers would always sort of mention the Doors, which the Stranglers sort of pretended to get pissed off about, but probably loved, obviously because of the keyboard thing and everything. And so they're always saying, but I was starting to think about them then, didn't know much about them. We used to go to these record fairs. I don't know if you did, the old record fairs, and we used to buy the bootleg cassettes, the tapes of all the classic rock stuff, and we'd buy them and copy them and share them. And that's how, because of the Stranglers thing, that's how I ended up with a Doors bootleg, which is the famous sort of Miami one. Yeah.
Was that the one his cock out?
Yeah, well, allegedly, Seb, allegedly.
That just happened to be your...
I was thinking about it. I must have bought that in about 1979. It was only about 10 years after it bloody happened. I mean, to a 15-year-old kid, is this bloke doing that and starting a riot and all the rest of it, and you're just thinking, this is the most exciting thing I've ever heard. This is wonderful. It's only a few years later when you've seen the footage of that gig, and it's just some embarrassing pisshead stumbling around. It's quite pathetic, really. But to a 15-year-old lad, it sounded like insurrection. It was amazing, So I got into them then, and because of that tape, really, and it was about the time when that book came out. What was it called? No One Here Gets Out Alive, the Danny Sugarman book. About that sort of time, and that was it. I mean, I was sold. I loved them, from that moment on, and then bought all the old albums, and so I became a fan, really. So I always used to sort of group the first three albums together, for rightly or wrongly. I don't think any of them are classics. They're very much of the time, but there's some just amazing tunes, and they sort of, very much define the Doors, don't they? Sort of the dark and light of that psychedelic time, the late sort of 60s in California. I love them. Still listen to them occasionally. They're not the classics. The two classics are the last two, Morrison Hotel and LA Woman. I love those albums dearly. They're the ones I listen to today. I think the sort of bluesier element gives it a lot more depth. It's a lot more varied. The albums, I think they're great. And then sandwiched in between is this thing, which I obviously, listened to at the time, just didn't like, and never really gave it the time of the day. I didn't like the production. I thought it was tinny. Didn't think the songs were up to it. I thought his voice was shit. I just didn't like it. I thought it was a bad album. And obviously a lot of people thought the same. So it's been interesting to go back and listen to it.
I think as well as the orchestration and the horns, which were added afterwards. I don't know if you, having listened to this, you can get on the 50th anniversary bonus disc. You get all the tracks with orchestration. You can hear the original Doors versions, and it's fascinating hearing. "Touch Me" weirdly still works. Well, what's the first song called? "Tell All the People," the first song, which is very, very horny and stringy. There's nothing there. You take the horns away, which is, I guess, is why they're so effective in the song. But anyway, I think the story behind this album is produced by Paul Rothchild, who produced all the records except for the last one because they had a big falling out. But I think it's because they've been touring a lot, and they just didn't have, and all the first three songs they used up all Jim Morrison's lyric book, his poetry books. So I think when it came to recording this one, they didn't have any material. So I think that was the problem. I think Jim Morrison had started drinking heavily, considered himself a poet and a shaman, all sort of stuff. I'm too important and too iconic for this shit. And they wrote a lot of songs in the studio, and it was so I think that's got a lot to do with it. That plus the strings, plus the kind of half baked nature of what you're saying, is one of the reasons why it gets the grief it does. Marcus, what are you? The Doors? Are you a Doors man?
Off mute. There we go. Off mute. Well, am I a Doors man? Good question. I've only ever owned one album, which was Strange Days, which I completely loved. It was a present to me when I was at university from this young lady, and I played it over and over and over, and just thought it was wonderful. But it was strange because I never then kind of got the proper love affair with the band to go through the rest of the catalogue and to really sink into them big time. So it was a kind of a very narrow experience of the Doors. Obviously their hits are around everywhere, aren't they? You can't get away from them. So those are kind of ubiquitous. So I would say my relationship with the Doors is admiration, enjoyment, but not really a fan. So I was really pleased to have this one thrust upon me, and this has been slightly a different listening experience compared to the other questionable album clubs, in that normally I listen to them probably 3 times, and I read the Wikipedia pages, and I look a bit around the periphery and make some notes. But this one I just played over and over and over again, and I'm just going to play my trump card now. I absolutely love it. It hooked me in right from the word go, and it didn't fade out. It wasn't an initial love affair and then it faded out, which some records get when they're immediate. I was completely in love with this album. It's been a fantastic listen, and I'll probably stop there because otherwise I'm going into the part 2 of the review.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
I'll throw that in and go kaboom.
I agree, Marcus. Otherwise, we're in danger of you giving us a track-by-track rundown in the next thing.
Yeah.
So just to avoid that. Also, I'm quite. This is the first time we've had an actual opinion on any music in the first half hour for about 6 months. So well done, well done.
Yeah, break the ice for you.
Steenie, my guess is you're a big Doors man, and you believe in Jim, right?
Well, yeah, I'm not a big Doors man in that I'm one of those people who has albums by the Doors, and my introduction, because I'm the youth of the group by about 2 or 3 years, but my big introduction to them was around the time of the film when it came out, the Oliver Stone film, Val Kilmer, and so all of a sudden their music's being played all over the place. And up until that point, even though I was a rock fan, I hadn't really given the Doors any thought whatsoever. They weren't a band that the bands that I like talked about. You didn't hear them being talked about by like Metallica and Slayer and Guns N' Roses as an influence. So when I started to hear this music, I was like, this is interesting. This is cool stuff. I like it. And what was really good for me at the time was that I was just trying to grow my hair. I was like 15 when that film came out, and my hair was at that Jim Morrison length. I was trying to get it a lot longer, and it just was the same hair as Jim Morrison had. And all of a sudden, all the girls at school were like, "You've got hair just like Jim Morrison." And I'm like, "Shit, there's something in this." So I went a bit down the Morrison thing then. Um, I suddenly started to see the attraction more of Jim Morrison.
That's the perfect age for Jim Morrison.
The perfect, and it was the perfect, as has already been said by Steve, that 15 years old is the perfect age to get into the Doors, and that was exactly the time. And yeah, I did went and bought a few albums, and the same thing, record fairs. I didn't get the bootlegs, but because my whole love affair with music came at the time, started around the same time as everyone was getting rid of all the vinyl and replacing it all just with CDs. There was all this cheap, great albums for sale. So I was getting like LA Woman for £2 here and Morrison Hotel for £3 there. So I ended up with most of the albums. Now, strangely, when Steve invited me on the call and said it's software, I said, "Oh, I'm really familiar with that album, so I'll have some opinions." Turns out it's the least listened to album. And I didn't even have it on vinyl. It's one that I think I've got on CD somewhere for the sake of completism and never listened to. And I'm not going to go into much more than that, but just to say that it's weird how the Doors went from that period probably was where their star was kind of highest when that film came out, because since then you speak to people and lots of people are embarrassed about liking the Doors. They're not a band that are cool, really. They're canonical. But people have a very funny relationship with Jim Morrison. They have a very funny relationship with lots of the music and the attitudes in the songs and his stance as a poet. His star's very much waned. And it's interesting now that people want to keep the Doors at arm's length. Serious music fans are often quite embarrassed about saying, "Well, I like this song," but they won't say, "I love the Doors." Hardly anyone I know says, "I love the Doors." Everyone's very guarded in their opinion.
That's so true. It's very true, except for Steve Gibson.
Okay, well,
Wow.
Steve, what's your opinion on the Doors? What's the scores?
Hang on, then we've got two hosts. We've got a dual host.
Oh no, I just wanted to get that scores on the Doors joke in.
Oh yeah, it's good, Steve. Very good.
Oh yeah,
I'd like that.
I've really preempted you now, haven't I?
Steve made a Doors joke.
that could make the thumbnail. The Doors, right? The Doors. I was aware of the hits growing up, and I wasn't too fussed. And in those days, if you liked a band or were interested in them, you had to get your hard earned out and actually buy something. But there wasn't enough to kind of draw me in, because I don't like my father. I'm a very fussy about keyboards and organ sounds. I just don't like, I don't like many of them, and I don't like that sound. But then I moved in with a girl. First girlfriend I actually lived with, and she just left uni, so she wasn't working. So a lot of all the financial burden was on me. She did have other assets, as I seem to recall. But that was so anyway. Part of this financial burden was I was in a band anyway, gigging a lot, and I did a rehearsal and a couple of gigs with the Doors tribute band, and so I got sent this tape to and I was quite surprised. I remember feeling how bluesy they were, because that was a shock to me. If you've only ever heard the singles, you wouldn't expect that. And yeah, I got on with it quite well. I think Wild Child was in the set, which is the only song apart from, what's the other single from this album? It's the only two.
Touch Me.
Yeah, Touch Me. That's the only other song I knew on this. But yeah, I didn't go off and buy all the albums or anything, but I'm quite surprised to hear they're sort of considered naff now. I remember the singer in that band was a bit of because this was at the start of the tribute band phenomenon, when just before pop music and rock music started to basically eat itself up, and we are where we are now, where you can't throw a stone out the window without hitting a tribute band of some sort or other. But he sort of did a bit of the poetry and stuff like that, which I thought was a bit weird. Well, it's shit. It's shit. Let's just be honest.
Well, you're hang on. The Jim Morrison in your tribute did some of the poetry.
Yeah.
Unaccompanied.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't think he didn't. I remember him not telling us. I remember because I might have done one or two gigs with him, and the others said before the first gig, the guitarist said, "Just beware that he might do a bit of the poetry." And I didn't even know Jim Morrison did any poetry. And then it's quite something to be sat up on a stage and have someone launch into that. Although I will say they're one of those bands that tend to have quite a hard, then anyway, there was in those two gigs there was quite a few sort of hardcore Doors lunatics who knew every word to everything sort of people, you know, there. So
Steve, let's
yeah.
get this straight. He did his own poetry.
No, he did the Jim Morrison stuff.
Oh, thank God for that.
No, he didn't do his own. Well, it might have been his own. I didn't know.
Just got his vision of this. Yeah.
I just hit things with sticks. I just hit things with sticks. I don't know. So it was quite interesting because I expected this album to be like the other ones. I didn't know any of the controversy about it. I do now after a bit of research. And yeah, it was quite. It was. And also, I must say, big Questionable Album Club fans will remember the Rolling Stones edition when I sat on the roof drinking, listening to loads of stuff from 1969, and the Doors' first album was on that list, and that was a nice listen actually.
67.
I think they've got some great tunes. 67, whatever it was, yeah. They've got some great tunes, but my opinion on this album, which I was quite when I from the track one, I thought I didn't realise they did a kind of show tunes album or something that sounded a bit like that, but as it went on, we'll see. I'm going to go around again. I'll tell you what I actually thought of it and the rest of it. But I'm not sure. I'm not shooting my butt. I'm not letting it all out like Marcus is this week. So
excellent. That's interesting. We've got an interesting range of opinions. Yeah, I had a similar sort of thing. I suppose when I was getting into music, it was very much through rock music, and the Doors for me were never really rocky enough. The organ was too dominating, and too many major key stuff, and all the big hits were major key. And it was all a bit silly. And then you got the myth of Jim Morrison. I think with the Doors, the myth of Jim Morrison, it was so much to do with it because the music was so puny and weedy and sort of like harpy. And Morrison was just this sort of incredibly pretentious kind of crooner over the top, topless kind of crooner who notoriously got very fat and drunk and stuff. And I think the mythology of Jim Morrison, I remember that book as well, No One Gets Out of Fear, Love, Dan Sugarman. I read that and then saw the film. And I saw the film before it came out. I had a preview ticket and I saw it in Marble Arch and was like sort of slightly ashamed of being really blown away by the film. But I've never really, I think a little bit of Doors music goes a long, long way, and I've never liked them enough to want to listen to an album because it's just, I find it yeah, I don't know. But so I didn't know. I knew Touch Me before because it's a famous single, but I think it's by far the best song on this. I'll give an opinion. I really enjoyed this first time round. I listened to it in headphones. It's really beautiful, beautifully produced. I think the drums sound amazing throughout. I think it's a really interesting production. I think they do a lot. There's a lot of sonic stuff going on with the horns and the strings, but it was kind of so. The first time I listened, I was really, really pleasantly surprised. This is really interesting. There's a few duffers in the middle, but then it's diminishing returns. I've listened to about 5 or 6 times now, and every time I listen to it, I'm like, oh god, it's the magic just sort of goes as the more I listen. So it's just another Doors album to me. But anyway, that's me. So Steve Hackett, what did you actually think?
Yeah, I don't like it. I mean, I am a Doors fan, and I do love the other stuff dearly. I always have. I did buy, bought into Jim Morrison's side. And you rightly say that. I mean, 2/3 of the Doors is that. I'm the same. I think that you take him out of the equation, and musically it can sound a bit sort of ploddy. You know what I mean? I think a lot of that is to do with the fact they didn't have a bassist. Am I right in saying that?
But there's the bass player on all the records. The bass playing is amazing on this. There's 2 different bass players.
Is it?
Yeah.
I just thought that. All right. Anyway, whatever. But I don't like the album. I don't like his voice. It sounds too. He overplays it. I know he always did, and with that big sort of baritone thing. I just don't like it on this album. He sounds like he couldn't give a fuck, and he probably didn't give a fuck. Like he was sort of dragged into the studio to do. It's very much will this do. I think it's dialed in. There's no hints of of any form of poetry on it as far as I'm concerned. Maybe tiny little bits in the title track, which I quite enjoy. But the rest of it, there's certain songs, I forget which one it is. I think it's Do It or something. And it starts off so fantastically. It's so exciting. And he does that sort of manic, evil sort of chuckle, and then you're just into another song about girls. I just think it's repeated throughout the album. I think there's some basically could be some good tunes on there. I don't like the production personally. I don't like the horns. I don't like the brass. But maybe that's just because I like the other stuff so much. So yeah, I was, you know, it sort of reaffirmed my feelings about the album in the first place. Really, I just find it a little bit dull, really, and the Doors aren't a dull band for me. I'm a fan, so yeah, I didn't, you know, there's nothing on there that really stands out for me, gotta say.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Marcus, you loved it.
Yeah, I loved it.
What did you love about it?
It wasn't what I was expecting. I was imagining the typical Doors type records, the bluesy and the psychedelia, and I thought the horns added massively to it, and the humour that comes through with that as well, the tongue-in-cheek vocals that sits alongside it, the kind of show tune feel I thought was really fun. I mean, I'm always fascinated by when you get musical genres which are melded together or just thrown together and see what happens. And here is one, this sort of psychedelic rock of the Doors mixed in with these horn parts that really have no obvious place being there, but they really, really work, and it gives it a difference and a uniqueness. And I've never heard that sort of, I can't think of that kind of combination together. So that just drew me in, and it got to that point where rather than thinking of them as a series of separate songs, it was just an album of music, which was lovely. I didn't really look at the track listing. I haven't done a track by track analysis because it was a nice wash of stuff all over me. So I thought that was fabulous. I love the production. Seb, I would agree with you on that. I think it's probably a lot better. It's been through various remasters, but I like the sparseness, the placing of the instruments. You get this picture of where they are, and the looseness of the playing as well. I just really enjoyed. It's a kind of style you don't really, you know, rock music went very, very precise and metronomic later on, but in this era it seems like they're kind of doodling around, and yet it fits. And I just thoroughly enjoyed that. So I don't think it's going to be an opener to the Doors for me. Oh, forgive that awful pun, which was unintended.
Keep them coming, mate. Keep them coming.
Yeah,
Keep them coming.
Yeah, I will stop. Yeah, People Are Strange and Strange Days and this will probably be all I really want from the Doors. I don't feel the need to go and be a completist and hear every damn thing they've done. But as a really enjoyable kind of one-off, I suppose, and actually I like it a bit more for the fact that I've learned today that other people didn't like it. I think that's just made me think, well, it's because maybe I'm not the archetypal Doors fan. That's why I like this, because it's not the mainstream stuff that they do. Just to pick out one track, as we always do, the title track I thought was fabulous. Lots of different styles going on, and actually it was interesting because what I didn't like was the intro bit, which is kind of jazzy, and I thought, well, this is going to suck because doesn't float my boat. But then it goes through these different things, like a mini opera of the Who or something like that. These different things joined together, and I thought this is lovely. It's very 60s. It's
a great groove, isn't it?
It's groovy, yeah. It's they're good at pop songs, but this is not a pop song. They've done something different with this. A winner from me, and I will leave it there.
Yeah, it's interesting about the horns. That it was considered a bit of a sellout because of the horns. When you consider that Love, and a similar San Francisco psychedelic band, had horns all over their album Forever Changes from 1967. Okay, yeah. Morrison was a big fan of them, and so I don't know how they would. But I guess it was perceived as a kind of commercial gesture, right? By 69 after 3 albums.
Yeah, it's like the heavy rock bands bringing in keyboards, isn't it, and to make it more poppy. It's got that kind of. You can imagine the same reaction.
But what you're saying about the instrumentation of Marcus, I think is interesting. Ray Manzarek's keyboards usually sound very specific. It's that specific sound, but I thought there was enough difference in what he was doing in this to make it not sound like, oh god, here's fucking Ray Manzarek doing
absolutely. Yeah,
Steenie, you didn't know this, although you had it. When you engaged with it, what were your impressions, mate?
Well, it's funny because I was looking at the track listing, and I was convinced I was very familiar with this record, and I looked and I was like, Christ, there's only about 2 or 3 on here that are actually songs I could even hum you ahead of listening to it. So it was a really.
Are you going to do that now?
No, no, but and this is the only one I've done of these albums where my entire listening experience has been done on headphones. So I've listened to this 3 or 4 times on headphones, mostly while I've been in Scotland in a tent while people have been snoring around me, and it's definitely added to the vibe, the feeling of, And I have to say, I really, really enjoyed it. I've really enjoyed this record. I was they do try and cover too many bases, but I think that possibly because they're desperate, they're trawling through influences. There's everything on, even like the country bit, "Running Blue," that song which is kind of like almost pastiche country, and it's slightly odd. And it's got Robbie Krieger singing the lead on it, hasn't it?
Yeah.
I think even from the very first song, "Tell All the People," like, it's kind of like Marcus says, it kind of draws you in, and you sort of fall under the spell a bit, I think. And yeah, I also agree that I don't think that the strings and the horns detract too much from the thing. I think they sort of add in some ways. What I like is that they're not obvious parts. They are slightly jarring in a way, the parts, and because they're not the parts that you'd imagine the Doors would have written, because they probably didn't. They draw something different out of the songs. And yeah, I've listened to just the Doors tracks without, and they're mixed slightly different if you actually listen, because on the production, certainly on "Touch Me," like the entire drum kit's in the left speaker.
Yeah.
So if you take your left earphone out, you've got no drums. When they've done the drum to pad it out, I guess, or because actually it was probably all the band sat in one channel, which is the left stereo channel. They've mixed it double mono or something. I don't know how they did it, but it's a strangely mixed album, and I really enjoyed reading up about it as well as listening to it. I enjoy all the drama behind the scenes, and I'm not convinced that Jim's entirely dialing it in. I think they got something good out of him on it. I think there's bits where he genuinely sounds like he's involved. He might have just been angry at being, they pushed his buttons enough to get a performance out of him. But I think he does a good job, and I've always liked his voice. I've always thought, even on the weakest and like the dreariest Doors songs, he puts in a good performance. It's a rich musical voice, and it's funny for someone I don't think had much in the way of musical tuition. He didn't really, but he's got character and range to it.
There's charisma in his
there
voice.
is charisma, and I like that richness to it. And there are certain people, like Iggy Pop, for instance, who will still. He's one of the few people who will still say he likes Jim Morrison's voice, because he sounds a bit like him occasionally. But it's I thought his performances did sound quite good, especially when he's doing his revivalist thing. It's quite fun, his sort of preacher bit on the title track. He's giving it, and he's playing a part, and he's doing the thing that I always say I like, and I think I've said it on previous editions of this, where I've said I like singers who act the song.
Yeah.
And the lyric that they're singing, it's not just some words they're saying nice bit of rhythm to fill in the melody. It's actually a story, and they're delivering it. Even if the lyrics can be garbled nonsense, which is sometimes the case with Jim Morrison, at least he believes it. He's not just he's not just speaking some gibberish to fill the gaps in.
Absolutely, he does believe it. You get that sense with him all the time. I think I'm right in saying, I know I'm not good at my research, but I think the Soft Parade title track, it's a sort of distillation of this thing that it's on the live albums that they used to do around the time, called the Celebration of the Lizard. So all those bits are on. That's what I don't like about it. It's just been like condensed into some 5-minute thing, and it's not expansive. It's not, when the music's over, it's not the end, and I love bits of it too, but that's sort of what pisses me off about it,
I think wasn't the original plan of this, wasn't Morrison, one of the reasons Morrison was disenchanted with this whole process, because he originally conceived it as a lot more of his poetry into this, because he was really by this time focusing a lot more on his poetry and himself as a poet. And I think he'd conceived this as much more as a kind of poetic statement. And I think the Soft Parade was going to be much bigger than it was. And rooted in that. And if you read it, it's funny because I think Morrison. I think Morrison. I agree with what everyone's saying about his. He's got charisma in his singing, and he lives the songs. so the bad songs are very bad, like Wild Child and Easy Ride, just embarrassing, terrible rhymes and just fucking moronic. But sometimes just try, sometimes it really works. But what I found was when you read the lyrics without him singing, they actually work much better, the ones that he wrote. And they kind of almost work. I mean, they're slightly pretentious sixth form, but they work much better as poems, right, inverted commas, than rock lyrics, weirdly. So I can sort of see there's a kind of jamming together of his poetry and rock songs, which I think sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. But I think the poems the lyrics on their own work better. It's like, okay, I actually see that as a literary form as opposed to some songs. They're very different forms to me. But anyway,
well, that's true. I mean, the notes that they've said in the Wikipedia background reading, the extensive Wikipedia background reading I've done for this track, does say it's been compared to Blake and Elliot, especially Ash Wednesday. And unfortunately, I didn't have my copy of Ash Wednesday. I'm actually quite familiar with that poem, but I was going to try and draw some comparisons, but I didn't really have time. But I think that, it's nice that he took himself seriously in a way. You can see that as something that's pompous and po-faced and pretentious, or you could see it as someone who's like slightly less cynical than your average rock performer who's tapping into something that they think is going to make them popular. And I think at the time that he was making this music, I suppose the sort of Byronic performer was a thing with Mick Jagger, but I think he took it to a slightly different level, didn't he?
So much better,
yeah, and he was well read enough, I think, to sort of fit into it. And whether he was successful with it, occasional flashes of brilliance. It's funny though. Sometimes people pick up his poems and his lyrics and slag them. Like I think Craig Finn from Hold Steady said that he thought that "There's a killer on the road, his brain is squirming like a toad" was the worst line ever written in any song ever, which is actual madness. That's madness to say that, because it's not that bad a line, and also it's not "I'm afraid of a ghost, it's the thing I fear the most, I'd rather have a piece of toast," is it? So
as well.
Anyway, Steve Gibson, we haven't actually had your opinion, mate. We had your fantastic story about your covers band and the singer going off into Morrison.
Wasn't my covers band. Hired Gun.
The covers band you were in.
Hired Gun.
I've got a question about this covers band. I'm going to ask you after recording, because I think I might know the band that you were in.
What were they called, Steve? What were they called?
Oh, I can't remember. We're going back a long way to 19 bloody.
Don't say the year, mate. Don't say the year.
Early 90s, I guess, something like that. So we're going back a long way. So you're probably just a babe in arms then, Steenie.
No, I've got to ask you something about this later on, because I think I might know the guy you're talking about.
Well, to be honest with you, I'd be surprised from my memories of the Doors fans that came. I'd be surprised if there was just one like him who lived it a bit too much.
Was this in the Southampton area?
Yeah, he was from Portsmouth.
Yeah, I think I know him.
Anyway,
right.
This album, yeah, I liked it. I mean, I sort of agree with what everybody says. I agree. It's a bit strange. I agree with everything, apart from the last track, apart from the title track. I didn't like that. When rock bands they're bitten off more than they can chew. There, in my opinion, they're not clever enough to pull that off. I don't see the bluesier ones as moronic, Seb, to be honest. I like it when they do that, but then the star of the Doors for me is Krieger. I just like him. I can't expand on why. I just like his guitar playing. I like the way
he underplays. That's why.
Yeah, and I just like what he does. So, and I think he's good. I think he's good at the kind of bluesier, rockier end of things. So Morrison's voice to me. Normally, normally I do remember lyrics. I forgot. Always the old joke. I forgot my PIN number the other day, but I remember the lyrics to bloody "Screaming for Vengeance" or something. But the Doors, Jim Morrison's voice to me is just like an instrument bit in the background. I I like Krieger's guitar playing, and my main criticism of this album is there's not enough on that. It's sort of washed out because I listen to the ones either side and you think, oh yeah, actually this in the context of the Doors, this actually is quite a poor Doors album. If you listen to the other ones for all sorts of reasons, but that didn't stop me enjoying this album. And yeah, I mean, that's pretty much all I've got to say. Really, it was a nice surprise. It was a nice surprise.
What do you think of John Denver as a drummer?
I like him. I think this is as a band. I think they all do. They play for the song. They play for the song, which is basically a lost art these days. And
I completely agree.
Also, it's so what I can't stand about modern music is certainly from a drum point of view, is the they find a snare sound they like, and every snare hits like that. They find it's all to a click, and it's dead. It's dead. It's dead music. Now it's dead. Whereas you listen to an album from those days, no click, everybody's swinging. You got a drummer who can swing, who can groove. There's a lot to like about it, and I like the. But I said it was quite interesting listening to the albums either side because you thought, yeah, this actually is quite a poor Doors album compared to the rest of it, but it didn't stop me enjoying it.
That's really interesting.
Yeah,
that's really interesting. I know what you mean about the albums either side. They're much more constructed. They're much more composed. Especially "You Waiting for the Sun." There's a song called "Yes, the River Knows," which is a kind of piano song. Yeah. It's a beautiful piano song. It's super original.
She'd do more piano.
I know. That's what I was thinking.
I don't like that organ sound. They overplay it.
Yeah, they should do more of the piano. There's bewilderingly little piano on their stuff, and they've got his voice sounds amazing with the piano.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
If only they weren't all dead. Well, have you seen Robbie Krieger these days?
No.
Oh my God, walking cadaver.
Is he?
But just, oh my Lord, it makes Mick Mars look like fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger. Anyway, what was I going to say? Horns. Who was it earlier on saying about the Steenie? Yeah, you listened to it on headphones. I did as well. And there's a lot of hard panning everywhere. But apart from the bass seems everywhere. The bass is fantastic. I don't know. Well, the session, the bass, but
I think it's possibly to do just with the production and that they were bouncing it the way they were limited to tracks, maybe in the studio. But yeah, it always seems very odd to whenever that's usually the excuse, isn't it? But on this one, it's he's probably just the producer. What's his name? Rothschild.
Paul Rothschild, yeah.
He's trying to just make space for all of his extra instruments by actually moving the real band around like chess pieces. I need to make space for these strings and horns that I've paid for.
Yeah.
But, how does it work with the keyboard then when they play live without the bassist, Steve? He plays bass on the keyboard.
Pedals.
I don't know how the Doors swung. I've never heard any Doors live stuff. Did they just play?
There's no bass. There's no bass.
Right.
It's bass pedals. Manzarek does it with his feet, doesn't he?
It's like
organ,
and it sounds terrible. Live Doors is really, really bad.
Is it? I'll have to
I beg to differ actually on this one. There's a cracking live concert movie on Prime. I think it's Doors at Hollywood Bowl or somewhere about 68.
From 68. That's from the Waiting for the Sun tour. I think it's. And they pretend, and Robbie Krieger pretends to shoot Jim Morrison with his guitar during the Unknown Soldier. Morrison falls to the ground. Oh,
you don't like it?
Absolutely, just the most cringingly embarrassing thing I've ever seen. Morrison looks like a sort of posh schoolboy. Looks like he's. I cannot. If anything, if you ever want to see anything that destroys the mythos of Jim Morrison, it's that film. He looks like a puffy, spoiled, pudgy little twat.
Right. After our next Christmas drinks, we're going to put that on at 2:00 in the morning, and I'm going to make you watch the whole damn thing again.
Maybe that's the spirit in which to enjoy it. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm busy that night. When is it?
Yeah. It's on the you know what, Steve? If you put Doors into.
Okay. All right.
But it's weird. If ever you want to see your perception, your mental perception of what Jim Morrison was, Lizard King, psychedelic, visionary, beautiful. He's just this kind of little double chin, and he's pouty, and he's all kind of like, he's just like, oh God, really slappable throughout.
So live, they Went for it without a bass player, and that's
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Just pedals off the keyboard for
Yeah,
pedals.
and
Yeah.
really jammy in a really sort of shit meandering way.
Right. Okay.
I mean, Morrison is still very, very, he's still very watchable. You give him that. He has got charisma. He's got leather trousers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the thumbnail, just leather trousers. Right, should we go into summings up as long or as short as people want to, and scores? Steve Hackett, I know you didn't like it, but do you want to do you want to sum up if you want to, or just give me a number?
So I love the Doors so much. I love the other albums. I think
Sound like it, mate. It doesn't sound like you like the Doors at all.
I do love the Doors.
Apart from the one where he got his cock out.
Any of their albums, just not this one. Just not this one. You want to score? Give it 50.
That's not that bad, is it?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Oh, it's not bad. I'm not saying it's a bad album, at all. Just by the standards of the Doors, it's a bad album, in my opinion. So I'm going to give it 50.
50. Okay, thank you, Marcus. I'll get my calculator out while we're doing this. Marcus.
Well, try and do something clever with the number references, but no, intuitively, I'm going to give this a 71 for no reason. It just feels like the right number. It's one of my highest scoring albums on this podcast. Might be my top ever, actually.
So what I'm getting there, do you want to think if you can think of something clever with the numbers while I'm going?
Well, no, I really won't bother.
Route 66 or something like that, or Steenie.
Right. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed it. I'm slightly shocked after listening to Steve that I realised when he was praising Robbie Krieger that I hadn't mentioned the guitar at all on this record, but. Yeah, I agree with Steve on that, and I really enjoyed this record. And I'm going to give it a 69 after the year it was released.
Finally, someone does something funny with numbers.
And 69 is a funny number, as everybody knows.
Always.
For 15-year-old boys.
Yeah, exactly. Who love the Doors? It all ties up.
Back to 15-year-old boys again. Steve Gibson, but this is oh my god, this is good. Okay, this is going to the top, my friends. This is going to stop Steve Gibson unless you're
we can't. This is Hackett's second choice, and the second time he's going to go straight to number one.
This is borderline. This is borderline loud anyway.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's a straight 60 from me.
60. Okay. I would like to second or third what people are saying about Robbie Krieger. I've never rated Robbie Krieger before as a guitar player. I've always thought he was really weirdy and very, very secondary. Well, thirdary to the vocal and the organ. And I always thought, but I could hear what he does in this, and it's so understated, and his tone's lovely. His little fuzz tone's lovely. He's just not showing off. He's always doing it for the song. It's the most ego-free guitar playing I've ever heard, but super tasteful and lovely. And
to me, what everybody says about the Stones guitarists. I see that in Robbie Krieger, but I don't see it in Ronnie Wood or the other guy.
Not even Mick Taylor.
No. Well,
Mick Taylor was that, I would say.
Yeah. Well, I've seen Mick Taylor.
Ego-free. You don't hear the ego in Mick Taylor.
He's the best musician the Stones ever had, I think, probably. But anyway, that's another. That's another thing.
I'm going to give it. There. Sorry.
Another can of worms there. We're not going to go into.
No,
exploring the Stones in one about the Doors.
I'm going to. I don't need to go anymore. I'm going to give it exactly the same as what I gave the Wings album last time. So I'm going to give it 64. So altogether, this is.
You can't leave the Beatles alone, mate, can you? That's
right. So that's 14 divided by 5. That gives us a total of 62.8. So that puts it 60. That puts it second. Yes, please is 66. Have I done the math? I'm just going to redo the maths, guys. Because I
need a recount. I
love the slickness of this podcast.
So 50 plus. I think I was being quite slick doing it all on my calculator while people were talking, but now I'm starting to doubt my maths because it should be higher than that. But maths is not my strong suit. Plus 69. I've done that already. Plus 64 equals divided by 5. Yeah, 62.
Like an Alan Partridge broadcast.
I'll take that. Yeah, it is. It's in number 2, yeah. So yes, it goes in straight into number 2 on the leaderboard. Yes, Please is still top of the charts with 66. This comes in at 62, so 62.8 at number 2. Third is now Drama by Yes with 61. And speaking of Rolling Stones, they are now down to 4 with the Satanic Majesty's Request at 57. And then Van Halen 3 is now down to number 5 with 52.8. So Steve Hackett, you now have the top 2 positions.
Well, it's amazing. Can I just say how fascinating it's been to hear everyone's handle on the Doors. Thank you very much. I'll be here all week.
Anybody got any more Doors?
Take some time. Think about it.
Yeah, that was the most clunky.
Oh my! Can we stop the dad jokes, please?
So from the top of our leaderboard to the very bottom, Marcus,
Seb, Seb, can you deduct him some marks for that, please?
We don't have individual marks.
Red card.
Yeah, get a hand on it.
So, Steve, with you occupying the top 2 spaces, and Marcus, you occupying pretty much all the bottom spaces, your choices. It comes to your choice today, mate. So
it is my choice.
Usual standard. What are you gonna make us listen to today?
Well, I bet you're on tenterhooks, aren't you? You can't wait to see what Kingwell's got to throw into the ring.
Go.
Well, when artists die, there's often a plundering of their dreadful demos and bootlegs and all the rest of it being thrown out. And much to the derision of the real fans who say this is rubbish, or occasionally you get the completists who say, well, there's gems in there that or wish I'd heard sooner. So on that basis, I am going to pick a plundering of dead archives. This is Motorhead. This came out only a month ago. It's called the Manticore Tapes. It was recorded in Fulham, I think it was Fulham Palace Road or maybe Fulham High Street in a recording studio or rehearsal space called Manticore, which was owned by, I think it was Emerson, Lake and Palmer or one of the big prog rock bands. And what's kind of really curious about this album, which I really desperate, apart from being a massive Motorhead fan, is I know their story. You could blindfold me, right, and give me a pen and paper, and I could write down the Motorhead story, start to finish, and everything. But I never ever knew this recording existed until about 2 months ago when they started pre-publicizing it. So it's kind of just come out of nowhere. It's not in the autobiographies. It's not anywhere, and suddenly it's there and it's out. The songs are the ones those that like the band will have heard them before, but they're recorded in a different setting. So what are they going to be like? Will they be duffers? Will they be rough demos? Will they be the magic that should have made it onto vinyl back in 1976? I don't know. I haven't heard it.
It's the original lineup.
Yeah,
it is. Well, no, it's the second lineup, the classic lineup.
Yeah,
the Three Amigos, Fast Eddie, Phil Taylor, Lemmy. So all dead. And
in what way is this questionable, Marcus? Isn't this solid gold suddenly undiscovered?
Well, we don't know until we play it.
I'm going to stick up for Marcus here and say that since the death of Lemmy, that they've become like Kiss as regards the just pumping all sorts of stuff out from Xmas t-shirts to Xmas sweaters to whatever. So when this came out, I kind of groaned a bit and thought, oh, here we go. But it's a good excuse to listen to it. So
well, that's what I thought. Yeah, we know we've got some love for Motorhead on this group, and Steve Hackett probably doesn't really know about the band, so hopefully instruction. We shall see. This could be the worst exploitation. It could be highly questionable, too rough, too poorly put together.
Yeah,
I just don't know. So let's dive in and have a listen.
I mean, the first Motorhead album is just appallingly produced, and it was done in 10 minutes, wasn't it? The rest of it. So
yeah,
I can't see the demos didn't make it being.
Yeah,
very interesting. Well, you've piqued my interest. I've seen adverts for this, but I haven't felt obliged to listen to it. So this is good call, mate. Good call. Well, thanks everybody. Thanks everyone for taking part in listening to the record. And if you're listening to this, please like and subscribe. It's really important. We are trying to actually officially build the channel and do things seriously now after many, many months of not doing anything serious at all. So please subscribe and like.
And comment, I think. That's the other thing. We'd like to have some comments.
And comment, because we're attempting to build a community. So yes, please join us on this as we rush through the annals of rock history doing this. Thanks everyone. Thank you, Steenie.
Well, thank you very much.
Thanks, Marcus.
Very much enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve Hackett.
Cheers.
And thanks, Steve Gibson.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening. Take care. See you on the next one.
Okay, you're done.
That was fun.
Cool. It's good.
Yeah. It's a hit.